Hey, you're listening to the Intentional Mind podcast, and I'm your host, Ange Barnard. On this episode, we are talking about people pleasing. And are you people pleasing too much? And how do you show up as a good person, one that truly does care about other people and how they feel, but you still honor the desires on your heart? What does that look like? That's what we're going to be talking about on this episode. The reason why I bring up this topic is because I've noticed a trend. And anytime I see a trend among my clients or myself, I know that we're not alone, that other people are also struggling with this. And I'm super passionate about helping you intentionally design your life, live a life that you're really proud of, that is in alignment with who you want to be, that honors your strengths and your values and all that good stuff. Well, I notice the thing that often gets in the way of us living that life that we really want is the fear of what other people will think about us. If you just look at the research, like Bronnie Ware's research, I'm always talking about this, the top 5 regrets of the dying, and how when she was caring for people as they were passing, she asked them, what is your top regret? And she narrowed it down to 5 top regrets. And the one I always talk about on the show, to the point that if you're a common listener, then you know that you probably can repeat this over and over because I say it all the time. And this top regret is what? I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. You know what that tells me in a nutshell? It tells me that this person was on their deathbed saying this because they showed up most likely as a chronic people pleaser. Like they were always thinking about everybody else over themselves, including what other people may think about them. And it stopped them from living a life true to themselves. So I really want to just shine a light on this, dive into it deeper. There's some more regrets. People often ask me, what are the other regrets? So I'm just going to throw them here because I bet you that a lot of these other regrets had a lot to do with that same fear of what other people think, and often also resulted in the behavior of people pleasing as well. Okay, so these are the other regrets. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Okay, why are we saying that? Usually we work so hard because we're trying to please somebody else, right? Or the next regret is, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. Why didn't you express your feelings? You were worried about what somebody might be thinking about you, right? Next one. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. Why didn't you stay in touch with your friends? What was really going on there? A lot of times when I'm working with clients, I've heard where they want to spend more time with friends, but they don't reach out because they're like, oh, what if it's been too long? And then they may think this. So a lot of times it comes back to, again, this worry about what other people will think of them, or they're spending time with somebody else or doing some other thing that takes up their time that they don't really want to do, but they're doing it because they're people pleasing, because they think someone else wants them to do that. So a lot of this, like I said, I think it can come back to this little culprit of people pleasing, caring so much what other people think about us kind of thing. And then the last regret is, I wish that I had let myself be happier. And I think this is just a relative to the main one there. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Because that kind of regret, like you didn't let yourself be happier, often has to do with what? You being worried about what someone else would think about whatever you were doing that actually made you happier. There's a lot of that, I think, that gets mixed up in there. So at the end of the day, it all boils down to fear. We know that, but I just feel like this is so relative to be talking about this whole people pleasing thing that stops us all at different times in our lives. All right, so I want to tell you a story about how people pleasing almost got me recently. Almost. So I've had to make some really challenging decisions recently. I've been living in the woods, for the majority of this month as I've been hiking with my husband on the Appalachian Trail. So I've been kind of bouncing back and forth in between. And then we're going through some major transitions right now. Like we're selling our little home and then we are moving back to the Midwest to be closer to our family. So we're looking at purchasing a home. And I also was trying to make a decision about like how much time am I going to be spending on the trail and what I really wanted to dedicate my time to when I was off the trail, what kind of work I really wanted to be doing and all the things. So, I have been doing a lot of consulting work with the military for the past few years or so. And there's a big project that we do every year that was coming up where you're basically gone from home about a month straight. You're working pretty much 12-hour days. And it was getting to the point where I didn't know if I really wanted to do it anymore. Like if I didn't have the right support system, because in the past it's been very stressful because I felt like a lot of the work would fall back on me to do quality work because I just didn't have the right support. And I'm the kind of person who I really value quality work to the point that I will stay up all night. I will do whatever it takes to make sure that I'm delivering a quality product. So I know myself, I know how I am, and I know that I'm not someone that can just turn it off and just kind of like do crappy work. That's just not in alignment with my values. So this is another thing, this is a side note that I've learned from evaluating the past, being in roles that I really didn't like. I learned that I didn't do well working with people who didn't want to do quality work. Like they were the kind of people who want to just check a box and get by. Like that just didn't resonate with me. So I realized going forward that if I was ever going to be working on a team, in order for me to really enjoy my work, I know that I need to be around people that also value doing quality work. So I'm just saying this to you right now. This is a little side note off of our main topic, but I'm saying this because if you are finding yourself feeling unfulfilled for any reason, I guarantee you it has to do with a value of yours that's being challenged. What value is that? And instead of us like kind of, I guess, not paying attention to that, throwing it off to the side, I just want to validate you and let you know that if you have a value around something and other people don't, it doesn't mean something bad about you. It just simply means that they don't value that the way that you do. So how can you set up your environment so that your values are being honored? So that's a side note, but I think it was worth sharing. I always feel like I try to trust my intuition where it like likes to lead off to a side thing, but I'm like, maybe someone just needed to hear that. Okay, so back to my story. So there's all these things where I was kind of feeling like, I don't know if this is for me anymore. I think this chapter is like about to close. Then a little bit of my fear kicked in around I just wanted to make sure that I could bring in a good chunk of income, and that was a big like money making source for me, that big project. And I had already devoted my schedule to doing the project and all the things. But in my heart, like my heart was telling me like, no, I think I want you to do something else. Like I was feeling that, but I just didn't know what that was. So initially you try to ignore those feelings. I know this. And you rationalize it in your brain. And you're like, well, this, the money, this, like whatever. You make all these excuses. So I was starting to do that. I was shitting on myself, as I would say. I was like, well, you should do this because, that kind of stuff. It's a lot of level 3 energy is what I would call it when we're talking about the different energy levels. A lot of coping to get by, rationalizing. And I know for myself, I don't want to live in that space, that energetic space. That's not what I want for my life. I don't want to settle. And anytime I'm making excuses to do something, trying to explain why I should be doing it, doing that shitting thing, the SHOULDING, doing that stuff, that's usually me trying to settle in something. So I really pay attention to that energy. And I know that the life I want to live is not one of settling. It's of living my best life. So I watched that. So I started noticing that coming to be. And I started noticing some other patterns where like, we weren't probably going to get the team that we needed. And just some of the other things that were being done, I just wasn't in alignment with me and how I wanted to do things. So I was like, well, I'm going to try to ask for more money. Maybe that will be a good thing for me to stay. And again, in my head, knowing in reality, I don't really want to do this project. So I go and I ask and negotiate using all my strategies to get more income. They said no. And I knew it was like this God wink where God was like, girl, who you playing? Like, the same for you. And then at the same time, I started going for some other opportunities because I was like, I love coaching. I coach one-on-one. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, and I also teach classes online. But I also love working with a team. I've learned that about myself over the years. Like, as a solo entrepreneur, I know that I don't like being a solo entrepreneur. Like, I love a team. And we do a lot of, I teach about doing evaluation on yourself. You got to know yourself and set up your environment so that you can align. Some people like to do things more on their own, right? We're all different. So I knew that I was like, I'm going to have to replace this with another team thing. Like, I just need to for my own mental health. That was my favorite thing about working with this, consulting project, was the team that I got to work with. Some really cool people. So anywho, I started looking for some other opportunities. Long story short, I ended up interviewing with a couple different companies, and my dream organization I interviewed for, and I got the job. So anyways, I'm going to be working with another organization, doing career coaching specifically through them, which all of the way they do things lines up with the way that I do things. And people might come up and think in their mind, why are you doing that, Ange, when you could be doing it by yourself? And I want to bring this up. I don't want to do it by myself anymore. I don't. I want to do my energy coaching stuff. I love that. But actual career coaching where it's set up and there is systems and stuff that you want to use to help people. And it's so nice to have other people that get you, other coaches that understand what you're going through and have your back. Like, it's just a really great support system. So the thing that always stopped me from working with other organizations was I was afraid that my freedom would be hindered. Like, I love to travel. I want to go be out in the woods if I want to. I want to go see my nieces and nephews if I want to. Like, that's a big reason why I became an entrepreneur. I didn't want my freedom taken away from me. So there's all these things that I decided I wanted. And the rational mind likes to be like, oh, how are you going to find that? You think you're going to work with some other organization. They're going to give you unlimited time off and let you do whatever you want, blah, 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 right? And there's doubts that kick in. I see this with my clients too, and I'm like, because I believe everything is possible. I believe the perfect team is out there for me that aligns with my values and how I want to live my life, all the things. So I ended up finding that. So it's really cool that I'm moving on to this next chapter, still doing all the things I'm doing now, but kind of just shifting my work a little bit, stepping away from the communications consulting work with the military and just diving more into career-related things. Because one thing that just hurts my heart, guys, is watching people settle in careers, spend the majority of their time working, doing things that don't light them up. I can't handle it. It just bothers me so much because I really do believe that we're all gifted in very unique ways, and we can design lives where we enjoy the majority of what we're doing every day. We totally can. I'm not saying that you're going to love every single thing about your job. Of course, like, there's things that, like, you can love something and there'll still be parts of it that you don't love. Like, I love hiking, but I don't like being out there freezing every morning or being soaking wet. I don't like that part of it, but that kind of comes with the territory, right? So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that while I was on this journey, long story short, like, how did I even go on this whole rant? I feel like maybe you needed it. So anyways, while I was on this journey of like shifting and trying to figure out what it was that I wanted, I could feel that catabolic energy kicking in, the confusion. And I was like, just, how like you're in your head a lot, like where it's like you feel like your head's spinning, you're like, I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like, let's cut the crap. You know what to do. Right? You just have this fear that's kicking in. So that was happening for me. And I remember trying to rationalize, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just do this last project because they want me to. And, like, I don't want them to think that I'm flaky or I started making up this whole story. And it was all about, if I was going to do it, it was because I was going to do it to people please, not because I really wanted to. And I bring this up because I remember a mentor of mine once said, people pleasers are liars. They're liars. And I was like, I don't want to be a liar. But what did she mean by that? She meant that you're doing things a lot of times that you don't want to do, but you're doing it because you're going to please someone else. So another thing she said is like, when people pleasers die, guess whose life flashes before their eyes? Not theirs. Someone else's life. A life that they didn't want to live, right? And that's where that top regret of the dying comes from. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. In other words, I wish I wasn't a people pleaser. I wish I lived a life that was true to me, even if it was going to disappoint people. And this is where that hard work comes in when it comes to intentionally designing your life. Look, if you're going to intentionally design your life, you're going to disappoint people along the way. Hands down, it's part of the deal. And the reason why is because, one, it takes a lot of courage to live a life true to yourself because of that, like disappointing people. And the other thing is they don't see your vision. They don't have that on their heart. And they're not expected to. That's yours. That was given to you. And it's your responsibility to follow through on it. And yeah, you may disappoint people along the way, but you can also trust that they will be supported and they'll have everything that they need. That's a higher level of thinking. So anyways, when I kind of evaluated all this, I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do this. And if I was doing it, it would be because I was people pleasing, right? And so what? Like, what if they do think these negative thoughts about me? Then what? What do I think about myself? Because the reality is, even if someone thinks bad about me, I get to decide what that means to me. I'm the one who lets it hurt me based on what I choose to make it mean. And maybe they're like, oh, she's flaky and can't rely on her or whatever. Let's say they make up that story. What do I get to make that mean? I can make it mean that I made that decision because I'm committed to intentionally designing a life that I love. I'm committed to that. And I know it takes hard work. I know it takes sometimes disappointing people. And I'm committed to that. So after I did it, I felt like all these weights were like lifted off my shoulders when I finally declared, like, look, I'm not going to be working this exercise. And I didn't know if I had the other role. I still didn't know. I had an interview with them, but that went well, but I still didn't know if they were going to give me the role. So it was kind of like I was acting out of faith. And I told Ian about this. I was like, I'm going to say no to this. And I ended up saying no to them, that I wasn't going to work the contract. And I was still like, well, we'll see if this other opportunity comes to be. But then I even thought to myself, even if it doesn't, it's okay. Because I still have a thriving coaching business. I still am loved and supported. At the very least, even if I didn't work, I could just go jump on the trail. And I could just continue on with my husband. No matter what, I always win. And I'm saying this because level 6 thinking, remember we talk about the different energy levels, that higher level thinking has that mindset of we always win. We're not attached to certain things working out a certain way because we know that we're always going to win. We're always going to make it work for us. We're always going to thrive in any situation that we're in. And I'm bringing that up because I see a lot. I've been hearing so much from my friends that have been going through really hard times recently. And I've been saying this to all of them. Look, no matter what happens, you're going to thrive. You're going to make it. You're going to do well. And the reason I know that to be true is because you're going to decide that no matter what, you're going to work it out so that it works out the best for you no matter what. What if you showed up with that kind of confidence through anything? Would you be then so worried about what people would think about you? Would you be then giving so much power to other people? Like if, oh, they need to think a certain way about me so that I can get this certain opportunity. And it gives you like this anxiety that we live with. But what if you believed that no matter what, everything was working out for you? And if this door was going to close or that person was going to think a certain way about you, then so be it, because God's got your back. And it's always going to work out well for you. Like, it's such a powerful way of thinking. And I've just been really adopting those kinds of beliefs. And I swear, it's just been serving me. Like, things always just seem to work out. And I think it's all because of what I choose to believe and then what my brain looks for, because I chose to believe this. And sometimes it's hard to believe that. But you know what I do? Is I go back and I collect evidence from the past where I was maybe in a situation that was hard. I didn't know what to do and what came of that. All the opportunities. Like I have a bunch of evidence to show that I've always been taken care of and loved and supported. And I know that you do too. No matter what you're going through, you have that same evidence, right? Okay. All right, checking back in. Are we still on the topic of people pleasing? Yes, we are. Okay. I'm just letting this one just flow in. I was praying for like the right message, and I hope that this is the right message for you and the one that you needed. So we're going to let it flow. Okay, so another thing I had to do was another opportunity that I had to say no to, basically, because I took on this new amazing dream opportunity for me. And that was hard for me because the person that had given me this opportunity, I really admire. And that's when it can get really hard and the people pleasing kicks in, because you're like, I like them so much and I want to please them. They matter a lot to me. But then you need to do something that is going to disappoint them. And it's hard, right? So I ended up telling this person I couldn't help them with this thing because I took on this new opportunity. And I apologized and I said, I'm so sorry. And I wish I would have, basically told you sooner, but I didn't know all of this stuff was going to come to be. And he said to me, never apologize for doing what is right for you and your family. And I was like, damn, that's why I love you so much, And I think about too, a long time ago when I had to tell my boss before I started coaching, I had an amazing boss that I love so much who gave me a lot of opportunity in my life. Basically was like a mother to me. And anywho, I had to tell her that I was going to quit my job so that I could go on to coach full time. And it was really hard for me. And I just remember dealing with that. Like, I don't want to tell her this. And I could have been in that position for years, just pleasing because I wanted to please her. So sometimes it's like people that we really love that can stop us from living our best life. But the thing is, staying true to yourself and trusting that no matter what, if those people are supposed to be in your life, they will still be in your life. Like my old boss, still in my life, still like sending her all the Christmas cards, talking to her, going to see her. It's been like a long time ago. I don't know how many years, but it's been a while. Still in my life. My other boss that I just told you guys about, who had to say no again to another opportunity, still in my life. Still just messaged me and said, I'd like to see you soon. Right? And I think that people admire that, like you showing up to live life in alignment with what is most important to you. We all admire that. That's why when we talk about negotiation, when I'm helping my clients negotiate, I'm like, when you negotiate and you mention this stuff, talk about your values, because no one's going to hate on you for living in alignment with your values. Everybody wants that. Just everybody doesn't do that, because we get wrapped up in this crap of like worrying about what other people think. This even goes back to, I'm thinking of a story where one of my younger sisters is a really gifted singer. I was not blessed with that skill set. She is a really gifted singer though, like kind of like that Adele kind of voice, you know what I mean? And it hurts my heart because she put a video out once and somebody left a negative comment, or it was a family member. And it really took her down to the point that she never posted anything else. And I still, to this day, I'm like, what? You're just going to waste your gift because of what someone else has to say? Like, how many of us are doing that, though, in our lives? We're not showing up because we're so worried about what other people will think about us. It's silly. And it's simple things. We don't got to make it, it doesn't need to be a big scale thing like, you have an amazing voice and you want to be this musician or anything. It doesn't even have to be at that level. It can be straight up like, let's say you ordered a meal and they brought you out the wrong food, or they didn't fully cook your steak or whatever it was that you ordered, and you don't speak up and you just eat the food even though you know it's not the right thing, or you pay for the thing that wasn't your right thing, all that, and you play small in your life. And it bothers me because I'm just like, hey, every minute of your life matters. You can enjoy your life to the fullest. You can speak your truth so that you can love yourself enough to be uncomfortable so that you can enjoy that meal. But how many of us don't do that? So many of us. I mentioned this a while back, the story. I don't even know if it's worth mentioning, but like I talked about how, how when you're cashing out at like a store or something, And they always ask you, like, do you want to donate to X cause? Right. And sometimes I find myself being like, no, I don't really want to donate to that. Like, I'd rather donate to something else. And it's not because I'm not a giving person, because I know myself in my heart. Like, I give to a lot of different causes. But that particular thing that they asked me, I'm like, not really interested in giving my money to that. But a lot of times we'll just give it because we don't want someone around us to think that we're crappy and we're not giving. And, we don't have the time to explain to them, like, hey, by the way, I just gave $5,000 to Africa for this, like, whatever. They don't even know you anyways. But you know what I'm saying? Like, why do we do that? So we act out of alignment with ourselves and we don't really want to do that. And even in some situations where, like, let's say I order a coffee and the coffee is like $8. And I kind of feel like that's ridiculous for a coffee. Like, this is just me being judgy about it, but for real. So let's say I spend $8 on a coffee and I'm like, what the heck? And then they're like, oh, well, do you like to tip? And I'm like, well, I just spent $8 on a coffee and you just handed me this coffee. Like, don't get me wrong, because I don't want you guys to be like, oh, Angel's cheap, she never likes tip. No, every time I used to go in like coffee shops and I like know the baristas and I'm leaving tips and seeing them on a regular basis. But if I felt like, one, you were rude to me when you're handing me the coffee, or you're rolling your eyes because I asked you if I could have extra almond milk or something, and then you're like, are you going to tip on here? And I just give you $8. Like, I don't want to, right? I don't feel like the service was given to me. And anyways, I'm bringing this up because I have found so many times in my life that I have just wrote a tip in there. And I didn't want to do that. I really didn't want to. Because I just, yeah. I mean, I don't know how to explain myself, right? But you guys know what I mean. And it's like, why do we do that? It's us living out of alignment with what it is that we truly want. It's us lying. Because it's not like I'd be giving a tip from a genuine place. I'm not. And if everything is energy, then I'm just like, what is that? What kind of energy am I generating there? Right? That's out of alignment. Because everything is energy. So I know these were like little rants, but I just think that this is just stuff to think about, how often we fall into the stupid people-pleasing stuff and it holds us back. And I personally think if there's going to be one thing that the enemy, if you will, is going to use to stop us from living our greater purpose, living that life that we really want, it's going to be the fear of what other people think about us. And it's going to be the greatest weapon. Why? Because we're so tribal. That's how we work as humans. So we're going to be thinking about what other people are thinking about us. Like, it's just natural. That's how we survived over the years, by being in a tribe. This is why we're so afraid of public speaking, or a lot of us are, because we're worried about what people will think. And at a subconscious level, we're afraid that we will get kicked out of the tribe. And what that meant back in the day was death. If you were part of a group and they didn't want you in it because they didn't like you, then you're on your own and you're less likely to survive out there. So it comes back to a survival thing. It doesn't really make sense now with the way we live our life, but it really still comes back to that when you look at how the brain works. So it makes sense that that would be a really good tool to use to stop us from living life in alignment with what it is we really want. And so many people that I admire, they're dedicated to their vision, and they're like, even if other people think this way about me, let them think that way about me. And one of the things that Brooke Castillo always says that I love, she says, I let other people think whatever they want about me. I let them. Because she knows her worth doesn't come from what they have to say about her. Now, I'm going to relate this to another way of people pleasing I've seen that is destructive. It's more like codependency. So codependency is like this extreme, or let's say excessive, emotional reliance on another person. Almost like, you can't be happy unless they're happy, or unless they did a certain thing. I see so many people live their life like this, where their happiness is based on how other people show up, how other people receive them. And all that crap is out of your control. So why would you give the power of yourself being happy based on other people? Like, why would you make that be the thing that determines your happiness? Wouldn't you want it to come from within? So it's something really to think about. I mean, recently I was talking to Ian about this and how someone in his family often isn't happy unless everything goes their way, right? Or unless another person behaves in alignment with what it is that they want. And I said, what a horrible place to be. in your mind that your happiness has to come from what someone else does, because they ain't always going to show up the way that you want them to. Right? But you're giving, like, it's like you're so emotionally unstable because the external things outside of you determine your happiness versus within yourself. So it's a big thing that we can practice. And it's something that I'm working on too, like not letting things get me down if someone acts a fool. And my whole thing is just like literally I visualize or envision in my mind like this bubble around me. And when someone's like saying something crazy or whatever, I'm just like, beep, it bounces off my bubble. Like I don't have to take it in. I don't have to make it mean anything about me. Like I'm that my energy is that powerful. That may sound weird to some, but this just like this visualization of it really serves me in my life. Because there's so much crap going on lately. Like people have all this negative stuff that I've been hearing all the stories, and it's interesting because I can hear it, but it's like I don't let it come into me. And I was like telling Ian too, it's like I love living this like life of where I feel like we're kind of sheltered from all the craziness. I don't listen to the news constantly because I don't want to hear all the bad things. Because I know that what I feed my brain is going to cause me to feel a certain way. And those feelings are going to create different results in my life. And I don't want it to come from a negative place. So why would I be feeding my brain with all this negativity? It just doesn't serve me. It doesn't make me feel good. I can't do anything about it. Right? It doesn't really make any sense. So I kind of feel like my husband and I shelter ourselves, but we're so happy. And I don't even care. Like if people are like, well, you're just being naive. You're not, you should be paying attention to what's happening in the world and all this stuff like that people have to say. But I'm like, no, because you know what? My life is not very long. None of ours is. And I want to live my best life and I want to feel good. So I know that I need to guard my mind and what's coming in it. So I just had to say that. The next thing I wanted to point out is simply this. People pleasing will cost you your life, the life that you want. So I want you just to bring awareness to where you're doing this. And can you practice being true to yourself? Even if that's that simple thing of saying no, you don't want to donate to something and not even having to explain yourself, just saying, no, thank you. And just letting it be. Letting anyone around you think that you're selfish and not giving. Let them think that. That's okay. Because you know your heart. You know who you are. So that's just like a simple example. Practicing asking for something that you want so that you can enjoy your experience more. And letting someone think a certain way about you when you ask. That you're super needy. That you're whatever they want to think, right? These are little ways that we can practice living more intentional and being true to ourselves and always showing up, doing it from a place of love. Like that's important, putting that kind of energy out there, but also doing it from a place of loving yourself. Do you love yourself enough to be uncomfortable, to do the hard things so that you can enjoy your life more? I just posted a picture of my husband and I over this lookout area in the Smoky Mountains. And I talked about how he said, and do you want to hike an additional mile off the trail so that we can see this really cool view? And I had to think about this because I was like, do I really want to go off trail and then have to hike another mile back? So basically almost 2 miles off a trail when I've been hiking for 8-10 hours, like the whole day, or I know I need to, and I'm hurting already. Do I really want to do that just to see an awesome view? Like I had to stop and think about this. But then I thought about what my mentor has said. So the best views will require more out of you. And do you love yourself enough to give yourself the best view? Even like the best meal, like we going back to that meal example. Do you love yourself enough to give yourself the best meal? Sometimes it's simple things like I'm going out to eat and I love mayonnaise. This is a side note about myself. Any of my friends know I love mayonnaise. In fact, my trail name on the Appalachian Trail, they always give you nicknames, is Fanny Mayo. And the reason why is because I have a fanny pack that I always carry and it has like mayonnaise inside the fanny pack. That's how weird I am. Okay, so when I'm at a restaurant, I will ask for a side of mayonnaise and it'll be with things that normal people don't eat mayonnaise with. And I don't care because I know that I'm going to enjoy my meal more if I ask for that. The old me used to be like, no, I'm not going to bother them. I'm not going to ask for that. They're going to think this way about me, blah, blah, blah. Like, right? Not anymore. That's not how I show up anymore because I'm committed to living my best life. And I will let you think whatever you want about me because I know my heart, I know my intentions, and my worth doesn't come from you, right? What a cool place to be. I want to like really practice that more. I'm practicing it, but I definitely can get better at it because there's other certain circumstances where I fall into the people pleasing stuff, hands down. Okay, so there's something else that I want to. Okay, there's a couple of things. I have some notes written. So, this is also about trusting yourself more. Um, One of the things that used to really irritate me about my husband when we first got married, he's done so well since then. But there was a lot of programming that he got from his childhood that he had to go to external sources to see if something was a good idea. Like he didn't trust himself. Like when he was making decisions, he'd be like, "Mom, what do you think? Dad, what do you think? This person, what do you think? What do you think?" And I would just be like, "What do you think? What do you think about this situation? What do you want? Trust yourself." Like it would really bother me. And I realized it was because of kind of like just the programming that he got from childhood. And then it kind of light bulbs went off and he's realized like he's he's different in how he makes decisions now, like very competently, but that wasn't his original way of being. He had to do work on that. And a lot of us do that. We always go to other people to get validation behind something. Like, should I do this? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't seek wise people to hear what they think. That's not what I'm saying. But there's a different energy. Like you can come from a place of like, okay, I think I really want to do this and I'm curious to know what other people think. But your decision isn't based off of what they think. And then there's this other kind of energy where it's like, well, what do you think? Do you think I should do this? It's almost like you need them to convince you. It's a different energy. So I want to check in with that if that shows up for you and tell you. And I just want to say, trust yourself. You know what to do. Listen to that intuition that's there for you. It's telling you what's the best decision to make. Okay, and then let me go back. I got some really good notes. Okay, I wrote this down. The older we get, the more we realize we won't be here forever. If you're going to reach your highest potential, you can't be distracted from things keeping you from your purpose. Your time is too valuable to respond to every critic. Let's say that again. Your time is too valuable to respond to every critic. Trying to convince someone to understand you when they're committed to misunderstand you is not a good use of your time. And you know that. Like when people they're already committed to misunderstanding you, and then why waste your energy trying to convince them to get why you're doing something? It's not a good use of your energy. And people who use their energy wisely, they direct their energy to the life that they want, not to the haters or the critics. They don't do that. They know it's not worth their energy. Those who need to be for you will be for you. If someone doesn't see the gift that you are, do yourself a favor and move on. They're just not a part of your destiny. You're not supposed to engage in every conflict. This is a distraction. Don't take the bait. You ever see that where people like want to argue with you, or just like I've experienced this a lot where I'm like, no, I'm not taking the bait. That's not worth my energy. Sometimes I even find myself repeating back to my husband something that happened and something someone said and then getting worked up about it. And I'm like, why am I even telling him the story? It's not even worth me talking about, really. Giving energy to it. It's not worth my energy. So be disciplined, really, and direct your energy towards the things that are in alignment with who you want to be. That's propelling you to your destiny. All right, and one last point related to this whole people-pleasing concept is that you're treating people how to treat you. You are. And I've seen this a lot in relationships lately, a lot with clients, with friends, all the things where someone may treat them really crappily. And I just want to say, why? Why are they treating you that way? One, people can be like, because they're a jerk. That's how they've shown up. But they're treating you that way because somewhere along the way, they've decided that they can get away with treating you that way. You taught them how to treat you. And that may be like a coping mechanism that you developed over time where you decided, like you just don't want to deal with it, like the arguing. So you just kind of like, oh, whatever. You just let them go on and on, even though it bothers you so much. But then you've taught them, and that's acceptable behavior, that you'll just take it. And I bring this up because I've been there too. I've let people treat me very crappily in the past. I was in super crappy relationships. And why was I? Because I tolerated it, right? Because they thought that it was okay to treat me that way because I dealt with it, right? Even in other, I talk a lot about my wedding and what happened with my wedding and how that was like toxic and destructive. Well, why was it that way? Yeah, this person acted a fool and couldn't manage their mind. But who let them treat them that way? Me. So I take responsibility for that. I take responsibility for how I let other people treat me, because we teach people how to treat us. The same is true for money. Like even in a recent role that I was in, I was one of the lowest paid people. And I felt like I was probably one of the most hardworking, putting really quality work out there. And I'm not saying, I don't even like to use the word hardworking, because I don't feel like the harder you work, the more you should get paid. Like that's not my thought at all. I don't want to like install that belief. But I will say I was one of the least paid in that environment. And why? Because I tolerated it. Because I let someone like treat me like that. And now my standards have changed so much around what will I accept for a wage, what kind of environment I'll be in, the professionalism, all the things has changed. And because I'm setting standards for myself, new opportunities come my way that are in alignment with it. That just happens, I feel like, naturally. So I wanted to bring this up. I want you to be thinking about the kind of life that you want. I know you're always thinking about it, but like, how do you want to be treated in your relationships, in your work environment? What do you want that to be like? And what boundaries or standards or rules that you need to set up so that people can honor your vision? How can you teach people how to treat you? So one of the organizations I'm working with actually creates guides of how to work best with each person within the organization. And I thought this was so cool. Like, for example, this person, you can contact them best via text message. These are the pet peeves that they have. If, that kind of stuff. And I felt like that's so cool, because then you know what to do to work best with them. Like, so I was thinking about, for me, I'm like, what would that look like for me? And it's like, I know that you can contact me best via text message. I rarely respond to social media messaging. I'm getting a little bit better about it, but for the most part, the best way is through a text message from me to get to me directly. What are my biggest pet peeves? I really am not okay with, like, I hate excuses for why someone doesn't do something. Like, that bothers me a lot. It's like the victim card that gets pulled. There's nothing I can do. Oh, like I want to love you through that so much, but I'm like, there's so much you can do. There's always options. And I'm not saying anyone's wrong for feeling that way, but when people like to live in the victimhood mindset, that's a hard one for me. And usually I don't see people wanting to live there, because my clients always want to grow and be better. But when I see it with other people, I'm like, ooh, you're better than that, So another point that I just wanted to make real quick before we get off here is this whole other side of the people pleasing. Like, yes, you want to be a good person. You want to care about what other people think, because you just genuinely are a good person, right? But you don't want to do it at the expense of yourself. And then why? Because then it turns into resentment. Like, you're doing something and then you really resent doing it. You signed up to bring the cupcakes and you really don't want to make the cupcakes, and you're annoyed that you have to go to the store and get them. Like, you don't want to be that person, because then you're sending that energy into that space, right? But so many times we've agreed to do things we didn't really want to do. There's someone that I know who I really adore as a person, but she's a chronic people pleaser. And I almost like it bothers me a little bit, because when I ask her to do something, I don't know if she really wants to do it or if she's just trying to like say yes to me and please me. It almost feels like she's quite a liar. Like, because I've seen her show up in other situations and just do it so that she looks good, but she doesn't really want to do it, So it's like this inauthentic energy that's being generated. For me, I much rather have her straight up say, no, I don't want to do it, than show up not wanting to do it and bringing that energy into the space and being resentful later. You know what I mean? I actually really admire people that keep it real and they're like, no, I'm not going to go because I don't want to. And there's like no explanation sometimes even behind it. Because the reality is the result is still the same. You're not coming. So it doesn't matter what the explanation is. But a lot of times we feel like when we say no to something, we have to explain a whole story why we can't do it. And it's like the end result is still the same. Or we feel like we have to lie through it. It's like end result still the same. You're not coming. Right? So sometimes like this over explanation of things doesn't even need to happen either. And that's that energy too that you're generating that you don't really need to. You can just simply honor yourself and say no and trust that they will get the support that they need. So that's kind of coming from this higher energy would be like, instead of saying yes to all the things, you know that you're going to honor what you truly feel because you know that it serves everybody to do that, because you don't want to show up with the inauthentic energy around something, because that energy will affect the space that you bring into it. Because a lot of times, you're saying yes to things you're resenting later. That's what a lot of people do. So if you think about energy being everything, what kind of energy do you want to generate into a space? Authentic energy. The kind of energy that makes you feel really good. And that comes from you saying yes when you really mean it. It comes from you not lying to yourself or others, right? All right, so I hope that this message really served you. And I'm not saying that you should be the person that never does anything that you don't want to do. But I do want you to think not just about loving on other people, but also loving on yourself. Like, what would it look like if you also loved on yourself? And sometimes it might involve you saying yes to something that maybe you're not super excited about, but you're still doing it at a time that works best for you. You're thinking of yourself too. So this is a higher energy. It's a level 5 energy versus just thinking about everybody else. It's about you bringing yourself in the picture too. All right. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. Please leave a review if you haven't done so. Also want to say my email has been having some issues. So the best way to reach me is going to be my straight up Gmail account. If you guys need to reach out for anything, it's AngeMBarnard@gmail.com. Hope you have an awesome day and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.